Alright, welcome to another edition of our mathematical problem. Today what we are going to look at is quadratic equations. And then with the quadratic equation, we have different types of methods we use in solving quadratic equations. Alright, so we have the factorization method. We also have the method of completing the square, and then we also have the formula method. So what we are going to look at today is how to solve quadratic equation using completing the squares. Alright, so let's take, for instance, you are given the question 6x squared is equal to 23x plus 55. Okay, so this is our question, and then as you can see, this is a quadratic equation question because of this squared here. Okay, so in doing so, using the method of completing the squares, the first thing that you need to do is to rewrite your equation as this. That is, taking everything to the left hand side and then equating your question to 0. So you have 6x squared minus 23x minus 55, and this will be equal to 0. Okay, so in using the method of completing square with such a question, the first thing that you need to do is that make sure you equate everything to the constant, that is the 55. So your question now becomes 6x squared minus 23x, and this will be equal to your 55. That is equating everything to the constant. So now we have 6x squared minus 23x. This is equal to the 55. That is the constant. Alright, so the next thing that we need to do after equating the whole equation to the constant, you divide through by the coefficient of the x squared. And then when you look at what we have the coefficient of the x squared to be 6. So it means that we need to divide each term by the coefficient of the x squared, so that your equation will now become becomes this minus 23x. This is equal to 55. This is what we had at the previous side. So dividing each term by the coefficient of the x squared, this is by the 6, by 6, and then by 6. So the new equation now becomes x squared minus 23 over 6x, and this is equal to 55 over 6. So this is what we have now, that is dividing through by the coefficient of the x squared. So the next thing that we need to do is to add half of the coefficient of x to both sides. So half of the coefficient of x to both sides. So here, what's the coefficient of x? The coefficient of x is minus 23 over 6. So half of minus 23 over 6 is what we need to have, so that we add it to each side of the equation. So we have minus 23 on 6 So half of minus 23 on 6, this will be minus 23 on 12. So we have this. So what we are going to do is that we are going to add this to each side of the equations. So now we have x squared, and then we have minus 23 on 6x plus the half here. So we have plus minus 23 over 12 squared, and then this is equal to 55 over 12 plus minus 23 over 12 squared. Okay, so what we just did is that after finding half of the coefficient of x, you square it and then you add it to each side of the equations. So after adding, this is what we have. Alright, so the next thing is that, as you can see now, after adding the square of half of the coefficient of x to each term, we have formed a perfect square, and for that we need to simplify the right hand side. So now what will be left is that we will be left with x minus 23 over 12 squared. This is equal to your 55 over 6 plus 5, so this will be 529 over 144. That is after simplifying the right hand side of the equation. So this means that you'll be left with x minus 23 over 12 squared. This is equal to 1849 on 144. Alright, so after adding half of the coefficient of x squared to each term and simplifying the right hand side, this is what is left. So the next thing is we further simplify by removing the square here. That is, it means that we need to square root each side of the equation to remove the square. So it means we have to square root this, and then we have to square root that, and for that matter this will take away that, so that we will be left with your x minus 23 on 12, and this will be equal to plus or minus the square root of 1849 on 144. Okay, let's move on. So square rooting both sides to remove the square, we were left with x minus 23 on 12 equal to plus or minus the square root of 1849 on 144. So further simplifying, this will leave us with x minus 23 on 12, and this will be equal to plus or minus 43 on 12. So the next thing is that we further simplifying by grouping of like terms. So your x will be equal to 23 on 12 plus or minus 43 on 12. And then since we have the plus or minus, it means that we are going to split our answer into two as 23 on 12 plus 43 on 12, or 23 on 12 minus 43 on 12. Let's move on. So further simplifying each of the terms, we have your x will now be equal to 11 on 2, or your x will be equal to minus 5 on 3. So therefore the solution set your x is such that your x is equal to 5 whole number one on 2, or minus 1 whole number 1 on 3. All right, so this is what we have left. All right,